Okay, and we are live.
Yeah, you can be front and back. Let me see.
Okay, let me just. Okay, we are. All right. Welcome to Anerd. If this is your first time here, I am Tony. I'm the owner and curator of that does mainly the exhibitions here in the space. And yeah, welcome again to this afternoon. As I mentioned, those who sign up is not here, but those who didn't sign up are here. So great nonetheless.
Thank you.
So
Because they're all like
yeah.
trickling in.
Yes. So in this session is part of the exhibition that Club remembers, and today we are having the artist conversations of those who are here with us, and the exhibition itself, the story the Club remembers is based on our conversations with Sabine, and then we met Saul in Laos as well, and then we were looking at the monks' embroideries and that depicts stories, right? So like all these characters and sceneries, and we are talking like, oh, what are these? This story club culture, and then we were talking in batik specifically. We have like Batik Company, Batik Cerita, the storytelling club based on fairy tales batik, and then we expand that conversation. And as we are reading more into the story cloth, from a lot of resources are from the monks, the monk embroidery, the monk embroidered cloth, and it's a lot of it is about how the monk tribe migrating through from China to the different parts of Indochina, Vietnam, Laos, Thailand, and how they are using this craft to reconcile their experiences from the past and how they are creating identity in a new place and what they hope for the future. So we are taking this theme and approach contemporary artists to respond to the different quote unquote traditional textiles and how they are interpreting through their own personal experience. So that's the premise of the show, and we have the panel here, and just kind of like some house rules. We'll be taking photos for our social media, so if you do not want to be seen, let us know. And then this is very casual discussions. There might be themes or words that might be triggering, but the idea here is to learn and understand more about different experiences. So with that, we'll be doing just back and forth, so I will ask questions. Feel free to reply with reply with a statement, and you might ask somebody else. Yeah, so just to get the ball rolling. So probably I'll start off with you can introduce yourself and like what's your experience with like moving and discovering new places or new experiences, and how you are feeling about those moving and being in a new place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you directed it to me.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm like, yeah.
Like right in the center.
Hi everyone. My name is Hafi. I think I'll do a little introduction. I am an illustrator, graphic designer, and I'm also a visual artist. You can see my work there. Is the one at the front. Maybe we'll talk about it like later.
Mhm.
But what's my experience?
Yeah, like moving and settling.
Moving and settling.
Yeah, probably from I don't know, Pasir Ris to town.
I think for me, like being a Singaporean, I've been here like all my life. So the idea of like moving to a foreign country, like that's like very foreign to me, Yeah. And I guess like experiences of like moving and like detaching. I guess like a personal experience would be how like I mean, in Singapore, it's so common to be staying with your parents. Yeah. And then I think back then when I was like a younger artist, I always longed for a place of my own where I can like grow without, having my parentals like checking up on me. Like I know they care a lot, right? Yeah, but it's just that like it's sometimes it gets very like stifling. Yeah. And I think um yeah, I do feel like this sense of like I need to kind of detach myself from that in order to like grow as like a creative person and as an individual. And yeah, I guess like I decided to move from my childhood home to like here. Basically like yeah, like I've been staying in like Little India for like what 5 years, 5 years, close to 6 years already. So I guess like I think it's like a very eye-opening experience because it's very different from where I grew up. And also I think like every day, like if I have like a creative block or whatever, I just go for a walk and there's like so many things to see. Like even now, like there's like cows, that you can see because it's Pongal. Yeah. So it's always like a very lively neighborhood, very noisy, but I love, the exuberance that it brings. And I think it also kind of influenced like how I see life and how I create my work as well. And I think, because I'm like staying so near, I also discovered like Tony's shop. And then like now we're like friends and like yeah, it's like it's so great that I can collaborate with like artists and like business owners that are around here as well. Yeah, so I guess like that's my experience.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about how that translates to your work.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably I will pass to Saul.
Okay. Hi, I'm Saul Chen Tusan. You can call me Saul. And I'm an artist, mainly filmmaking as the medium, from Myanmar, Burma. And in Myanmar, there's many ethnic minorities, ethnic groups. And I'm part of a indigenous tribe called the Chin people. It's like, it spells like the Chin. And I guess for me, moving related to the theme of this panel, um, because there's a civil war in Myanmar, many of the young people have been displaced or have to move out of the country for safety reasons, and I'm one of them. And so the past 3 years, I've been living in Thailand, Chiang Mai. And it's very close to Myanmar, so it still feel like I'm in Myanmar, except for the visas, and except for very like legal issues. The culture is very similar, but in that moving, in that I think traveling, my community, my tribes are also very similar because of the war. A lot of the villages, a lot of their hometowns have been affected, destroyed, or not safe for many of them to live, and have been migrating for the past maybe even 50, 100 years. And I'm presenting like this cloth and the video. And the cloth also is like, I didn't make this cloth, I make the video, but the cloth is made by many displaced people from my community who have to leave their homeland, hometowns, and move to safer places in central Myanmar. And the figures here are sort of like coming from the village life that they leave behind, sort of a way to remember. And the figures actually in the past, they would carve into stone tablets in front of the village to sort of tell the story of the village. But it's very hard to carry a stone tablet around. So they started like embroidering them. And actually, my uncle came up with an idea to take pictures of the figures and ask embroidery artisans to embroider them, and it sort of started a movement, a culture movement to create these blankets and to carry sort of a part of our culture around wherever we go. And yeah, based on this, as a trained like filmmaker, film medium, like digital media is very easy to move. And so now like by making animation videos, I'm also hoping to contribute this preservation of culture, but also continuation of culture through digital media. And yeah, I guess that's like the gist of it.
Uh, you touched a little bit on that creative journey, on how it translates. Probably I'll get to Sabine first, like your personal stories and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm Sabine Bolk. I'm from the Netherlands. I grew up in the Netherlands and I never moved. But my first visit to Indonesia in 2009 really opened up something. I was, of course, aware of the Dutch colonial history, but I think, well, nowadays it's luckily getting more of a conversation, but growing up, not so much. But my grandparents were enormous Indonesia fans. So they traveled in the 70s, from the 70s onwards, many times to Indonesia, brought many objects home, many stories, many photos. And my grandfather was really interested in the history of Indonesia, learned the language. So I knew these stories, but the first time I came to Indonesia, seeing actual Dutch remnants there, like actual buildings and things, but also um, in batik specifically, like imageries reflected, that really started my journey in diving into this history specifically. I first was just coming there to learn about batik, but then I really looked at mostly the colonial history within displayed within batik. And yeah, that is very much still my journey with this work, and in this way trying to also bring more awareness in the Netherlands to this history, and at the same time, also work with batik makers in Indonesia to share heritage that is kept in the Netherlands to them. So in that way, I'm trying to go back and forth with this. So in one way, using the heritage that is kept in museums to give back to researchers and batik makers in Indonesia, and on the other hand, trying to share what I learned in within the lenders, but also here. So I'm very happy to also share these stories here. So, yeah.
Probably okay. On that note, like, you can continue on in terms of like your response to the work. If you can share a little bit.
But you should share your movement first. I think that's very important as well.
Okay. So, my personal journey. So, well, I moved. So I am Indonesian. I was born in Bali, and I moved here when I was 12 years old. So I was pursuing education. Uh, Secondary JC university and work all the way here. So I grew up. Most of the formative years are here in Singapore, and pretty much on like reconciling of this identity. It's like very interesting to me because I'm neither here nor there. Like when I'm here, like I don't necessarily Singaporean. But when I'm back, like there are certain things that I was like, oh my god, this is annoying as an Indonesian to do. So yeah, so it's kind of like just kind of like some of it was like around coming around the same period. It was still like feel the same. Disconnection, disconnect, and so that's my personal moving journey and reconciling that. Yeah, and so this story, sorry, for this specific exhibition, Sabine like brought this book that was lying around in my house. Actually. So we were like, oh yeah, we are like doing about things about Story Club, and then it's like, oh, they have like this book on Story Club or Bali, and I was like, okay, so what is that? Unfortunately, we do not have it on display just because there is not a lot of makers who are doing it now. And I know only one person who is kind of like actively doing it, but she is more of like a sacred family heirloom that they use for ceremonies as well as decorating around the house for ceremonies. So so they couldn't lend it out to me, and okay, that's unfortunate, but yeah, it'll be interesting because there's a lot of like cultural adaptation in the Balinese story club, the Bulon. Uh, yeah, that yeah, and so that was kind of like this part of the journey why I was like interested in like the story club as well, and yeah, and anyway, as we got started, and yeah, you might want to share from your POV, like how's the creative process of this?
Yeah. So yeah, as you surely said, like we kind of started with this process in Laos. We were part of a textile symposium there in 2024. I was invited as a speaker and representing an art gallery. And yeah, it was my first time in Laos for you as
Yeah.
well, right? So yeah, yeah, we were. Yeah, I think Tony was basically neighbors of Sol in the booth, and then the next to there was also Mei Chai, who is the Hmong batik maker. Yeah, we were kind of like learning along the way about the flower cloths and the stories. And what I found specifically interesting was that actually most of these story cloths tell about violence. Not necessarily they look at first pretty and colorful, but there's a deeper story behind it. And I thought that is a very well relevant, obviously, story to tell today, reflecting back to history, but also to current developments. So yeah, luckily we can present it here now and during the Singapore Art Week. Yeah, and I think Sol can to say more about also how it is to bring these cloths everywhere. Maybe it's I think very interesting how it opens up the story of the Chin people.
Yeah. Um, so I guess the story of the cloth is also very tied to my family because my parents, before I was born, started a small textile business, mainly commissioning new textile from our communities and trying to market them into a larger, um, into the world, I guess. And actually, this is a story I haven't really shared with many people, but I guess since we're here in Singapore, um, I will share this. It's like in, I think, 1996. Yeah, 1996. Before that, Myanmar was a closed country. No visitor can come to visit. But in 1996, the government opened up through a national policy called Visit Myanmar Year. And during the 1996 year, a Singaporean collector actually came to Myanmar and found some of our textiles and became really interested. And she started, before that, my parents were commissioning work, but they weren't really selling, or not a lot of people were interested in collecting. But after that connection was made, the Singaporean collectors start collecting a lot of the work. And yeah, I hear until like 10 years ago, maybe they had a store here. I don't know where it is, and I don't know the name. Maybe like later on, I can, we can have discussions after the panel to see if you guys may know. Um, but my parents started the business, and we were producing a lot of different textile, and out of them, a lot of the traditional patterns are very complicated and almost like mysterious to the outsiders, even to ourselves as the Chin people, because some of the patterns are, like hundreds of years ago. So, um, my parents decided to like also experiment with creating more textiles that are understandable and still rooted to the culture. And yeah, I guess 20 years ago, my uncle, as I mentioned before, like went take pictures of the stone tablets and embroidered them. And in the stone tablets, I guess mainly it's just like the animals that the village has encountered, or the animals that the village leaders have hunted in the forest, and sort of almost like a way to, yeah, I don't know the exact word, but maybe like brag or like showcase like these animals that they have hunted. But more and more, like what happened with the textile cloth is the embroidery artists started adding their own figures. Like, for example, the weaving lady was in the stone tablets, and the peacock is also not in the tablet. But these symbols, like, I guess this is very self-explanatory, but the peacock is like quite interesting because it's the symbol of the political party in Myanmar that is against the junta at the moment. So it's also like a subtle way of sort of resisting, like a creative resistance against the junta. And yeah, there are many, many figures. And actually, like, there are some blankets on that shelf as well. And every blanket has like different figures and different arrangements. And you can take your time to browse or look through them. And yeah, I guess after like seeing them, I've seen these blankets since I was a little kid, but I never really like understood what they were trying to represent. And only later on, after finishing school and started working in film industry, I make documentary films related to Myanmar and my community. And I realized this is also like a form of documentation. And I was wondering how I could use this documentation to continue this line of documenting, style of documenting. So I think the animations are going to be like the next step. And there's a book, I think, on the shelf as well that I found recently
Next
in
to
Chiang
dog
Mai.
figurines.
Yeah. Yeah. And that book is like a collection of folk tales from my community written in Myanmar. So like I'll try to translate the book this year and create more animation based on these stories from this book. And that's like the next project that's going on. Yeah, you can share around, look. Yeah.
Nice, thanks. Okay, Happy. So yeah, I will like we're like okay, so we have like all this from South and like, what about Singapore? Like so, like, what exactly? Because first we do not have textile making like craft industry here. Maybe the moms and aunts might have like been seamstress in some tailoring business, mostly like manufacturing, but not so much of like textile making. And yeah, so it's like okay, so what are we exploring?
What are we
and so,
working with?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, and so we came across the Indian trade cloth with the fighting figures, and I said, okay, so it's kind of like very interesting. And oh, this was the World Museum's collection.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Stories like the imageries you found pretty much a lot in Singapore as well. Yeah, so that kind of like might be relatable. So that's why I was proposing. So we worked through a few cloth, and then yeah, if you want to share from your POV how we ended up here.
How we ended up here. Yeah, like I think, like Tony mentioned, yeah, like in Singapore we don't really have like a like fabric making or like a batik like house. Yeah, and I think a lot of my experience with batik is literally getting batik cloth from my two late grandmas, who are like literally from like different parts of like Nusantara. So like one of my grandma is from like Indonesia, and then another one of my grandma is from Malacca. So the things that they pretty much like handed down to me, it's always like it's always cloth, it's always like textile, and I think a lot of times like yeah, like even like when I'm like growing up, I don't really see the significance in it as well. Like I think we've like very similar to like Saul's experience. Yeah, it's only when like I'm older then I kind of like appreciate it. And I think a lot of times like I mean, if you see like my body of work, it's always about navigating or like kind of investigating things about, you know, family history or like personal history. And I also try to like look at it beyond like cloth or like using, you know, like fabric or like using like things like jewelry that was handed down to me, and kind of using those things as like my compass when I do like my pieces. Yeah. And like I think like for me, like I am kind of like, I wouldn't say a storyteller, but yeah, maybe I am. But yeah, like I think like a lot of my works, like I'm trying to like retell these stories or like what my version of like my family history is through like, you know, things that can be understood by a lot more people. So basically like how I'm doing like illustrations now, and you know, I make zines, I make publications. Sometimes like I do, I mean I'm not like an expert animator, but like last year I did manage to like do projection mapping for Singapore Night Festival. So like you can kind of see like the stories of how my grandparents like came to Singapore, because like I mean we are not all like from here, you know. Yeah, like if you see like Malay people as a whole, we are all like so diverse, and we come from like different parts of like um you know, Southeast Asia as well. So I think yeah, like it's good that I keep talking about it, because I don't want these stories to be like lost, you know. Yeah. And even with like the work that I did, um I'm actually like a bit scared like at how like people would um like look at it, you know, because like I'm basically taking like uh an old piece of like batik cloth from my grandma, and then I literally like heat press like my illustrations on them. You know, like what would she think, you know, if she saw like my work now? Yeah. But like I think um looking at it from like my perspective is that I don't want all these cloth that she handed down to me to just deteriorate and just, you know, like deteriorate in the cupboard and like just be lost forever. So in a way I'm kind of like giving it a new meaning, like adding on like my own meaning to it. Yeah. And you can kind of see like sort of like a narrative, but it's just like a personal narrative. Like you can read more about it in the zine that I made as well. Yeah. So I kind of like piece together like what each part of my life that I'm going through. But yeah.
There's one there maybe we can be passed along as well.
It's like, oh yeah, yeah,
Buy it
there's a
later for
browsing
sure.
copy.
Yeah,
You can pass around. Yeah.
Yeah, my frequently asked question is like, is that tear on purpose?
Actually, when I opened the cloth, it was already like torn. Yeah, but like this piece of cloth has been used like so many times. Like I think at home, like I'm always like hosting people. I love to use it as like, you know, put on my table, and then like as a what do you call it? Like a table runner. Yeah, and then sometimes I very anyhow. Lah. I will just like sometimes I use it as table runner. Sometimes I'm like, okay, this goes with my outfit, and I'll like wear it, you know. Yeah. So like a lot of times, like I try to like wear like the cloth that like my grandma gave to me. But yeah, the thing is, you know, wear and tear. And then for this one, unfortunately, there was like a tear, and I was like so upset about it. Yeah. And but I didn't want to throw it away. Yeah. So like I think yeah, I wanted to include that in the story as well. And also like I was going through like some stuff, you know, when I was like working on the cloth, and I kind of like reflected it back on like life, you know, like sometimes, you know, like life is a piece of cloth, and then sometimes there's like tears. So like how do you like maneuver, you know, through all these tears? Do you like fix it? You just like leave it alone and let it like tear even more. So yeah, it's really like up to you to like interpret it. Yeah.
Nice. How about you, Sabine? Like in terms of the word that
Yes. Yeah. So I recreated a new batik company Batik company is a term used nowadays on Java to describe batiks with war depicting scenes on it. It's a quite pretty long tradition. First batiks depicting warfare from 1885, or at least as I could find in my research, and they depicting actually the Aceh War, showing both the Canal soldiers, so the Dutch employed soldiers, next to the Aceh warriors. And this was a batik that was actually worn. So it was a sarong where we have photos of women wearing it. And also interested, like, how do you decide to wear this batik and in what sense? Um, an interesting detail in these Aceh depicting batiks is that it actually depicts a wounded soldier from the Aceh side being carried away. Um, while in the Netherlands during the Aceh War, they were like kind of trying to tell the Dutch people like we need all this money, we need all these forces because yeah, we are being slaughtered by the Aceh people, and they would make these propaganda images of mostly Dutch soldiers being wounded. So they would never show an Aceh yeah, soldier being wounded. I found it so interesting that in this batik it was. So I thought like maybe it's a kind of hidden um, message from the batik maker that's like showing like yeah, although this is maybe ordered to more yeah, celebrate the Dutch side, I will hide this element in it representing my own people. But nowadays, these batik, what they call now batik company, are just being reproduced in places like Cirebon. And I came across a woman wearing it casually, and I was like on Java, and I was like, "Wow, what are you wearing?" And she was just like, "Oh, I like the people on it," and she didn't know what it was, and I was like, "Okay, this needs this is yeah, this is so intense. I need to do something with this." So I thought I want to make an actual batik company telling the history of the Dutch East India Company, so the Verenigd Oost-Indische Company, and it's telling how that started and how it is still working on today. So I'm depicting the specifically the Banda massacre, which was done by J.P. Koen, a Dutch yeah, officer that was literally employed to um, get like the nutmeg trade yeah, in the hands of the Dutch. And he basically did that by killing anyone that was owning the nutmeg plantations. Very violent history, and actually we have nowadays still a statue in the Netherlands of this man, J.P. Koen, and standing in Hoorn in the city. It was set there at the end of the 19th century, so the same time these Aceh batiks come up. It has been debated many, many times, protested many times to remove it, but every time it's decided to keep it. And during the pandemic, there were many protests against it, but this became so violent for the people protesting it, like people literally came to their house and harmed them, that yeah, they stopped after a while. So I thought, well, maybe if I depict it in a batik, I can help with this story of that it actually should be removed. So I have a little like a photo book there, so you can find the images I used. In the batik, like the actual images I used as an inspiration to create it. So it goes from historical images of the Banda Islands, the Malaccan Islands, to yeah, quite recent photos of actually the Dutch put yeah, armed forces in to protect the statue at some point from the protesters. So it was a really upside down situation, and yeah, um, yeah, that's. Yeah, I think it's and I well, I am not per se a batik maker, but I didn't want to ask one of my batik friends in Indonesia to make it, so I decided to make it myself. But the second coloring I had to do in my shed because it was too cold to get my yeah. That's,
So, across the three, one of the theme that was like this layered uh, memories about textiles. Sol was talking about, you know, the layering of like the different icons, and that kind of like get through in history as well, like how it moves from the past and like to the current situation, similar to the batik. Oh well, batik is the techniques that is like layered of colors as well. And yeah, I personally like Hafiz hit press onto the cloth, and for the white colors or like the light colors specifically, the batik patterns come through. And probably I will speak a little bit about Mi's work that she's not here. In Laos, the traditional story cloth are embroidered cloth. The one right at the beginning, at the entrance. So those are like the quote unquote traditional story cloth that you can find in a lot of souvenir shops, tourist spots, and so on. And Mi herself primarily works with batik. And you can see the traditional Laotian batik as well that is hanging here. So it's like mostly geometrical. And so she was exploring this imagery in a story cloth on a medium of batik. And so she was like working with the materials, with colors, mostly hem on indigos with the traditional tools as well, which is somewhere. Is it in the
In the cup,
house?
Oh yes.
in the blue cup.
So
yeah.
do you? Okay. There we go. Yes. Yeah, I just bring both of them. Yeah. Yeah. So
Great.
one is the Indonesian chanting that people might be familiar with, and this is the Hmong tools. They do have a local name, which for the life of me I forgot. Do you remember? But they don't call it chanting. They do have a different name as well. So
I did wear Hmong batik for 2 years.
yeah,
So.
yeah. Yes. So if you can just help me pass this around, and yes. And with that, I think it's a good time for me to open up to the floor. If anybody has any thoughts, questions, yes.
Any questions here? No, not online, right?
But do you
No.
guys? There's a mattress.
Oh yeah, an extra. Yeah.
Oh yes.
How long did it take to make the batik company?
Oh, okay. So how
So the
long?
question is for the people at home.
How long did it take
So
to make the
professional.
batik company? I think thinking about it took longer than the actual making. I had a long time a doubt if I was the right person to make it as a Dutch person, but at a while I thought also like, yes, I should. And the actual making is like 2 days, like for one color, 2 days putting the wax on, then 1 day for coloring, 1 day for removing wax, then another 2 days for waxing. I think in the shed it took a little longer because it was so cold, and and then again dyeing and removing the wax. So yeah, I mean technically it's like a week, but in reality I've been carrying this idea for like 4 years. So so after the protests I was like, this is such crazy imagery, and I need to do something with this. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe my first question is to Hafi, like, because you mentioned a bit about like Singapore batik or like how we don't actually have our own, let's say, batik, textile producer or that kind of thing. But maybe in your perspective, what you feel is something that could represent maybe Singapore culture, or what would a Singapore version of no pressure, put the pressure on everyone else. I think the question is, because we're talking about story cloth, so cloth is a huge aspect of it. Why is cloth such a big, in your perspective, why is cloth such a big aspect of it? Because ultimately these drawings can be done on paper, they can be done digitally, but what is that cloth element and how does that come through in your experience?
Very nice.
Sorry, I'm still thinking.
No.
I think like it's so hard to pinpoint like what would be a suitable like
Unifying.
icon or like unifying factor that like makes like a Singapore cloth. And I think like I don't think like there's anything that I want to put that.
SIA girls.
No, but it's also interesting because kind of what you reflect is also a search in like how do you address identity and how do you show it in what you wear, right?
Yeah.
That's also part of the work.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
feel like we are also diverse, and like you can't just like say, oh, okay, yeah, Malayan, let's go, you know, like that is like, you know, a great representation for like every Singaporean, because firstly I'm not a Malayan, and like I don't, yeah, like can't relate to that. But like yeah, I guess like if I were to imagine a cloth that would represent Singapore, I would feel like it just has to be like diverse. You know, it's a very PC answer, but like yeah, like it has to encapsulate like a lot of things. And I think like I'm leaning more towards like things that doesn't necessarily pop up in your head, you know, like oh like MBS or like Malayan. It's more like nature. There is nature around us. Animals, you know, authors are cute. Love authors. Yeah, the local authors, community cats, love them. Yeah, so I think like it would differ from like one person to another, but I would say like my Singapore cloth would include all these things that I love. Yeah.
Love it.
Well, I'm like curious, like extending that question to well, like, how's your personal relationship to textiles and what you choose, what you need?
My personal relationship to textiles, what I choose, what I do. My personal relation, I guess I'm gonna try to answer the first question.
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
I'll
yes.
try to come back to this. Why cloth for storytelling? In Myanmar, we have a saying, like there are three things that humans need to survive or to be alive, and those are sa, wood, ne, ye. And sa, it means eating, like food. Wood means wearing, like clothes, and ne means living, like staying, like shelters, houses. And I think cloth is, you know, the central part of a human survival. So maybe even before we started, you know, printing on paper or having like the style of using paper as a way to tell stories, I think we're telling stories using, you know, food, clothing, and our houses or where we stay. So I think that's one of the reasons why the story cloth may be more primordial or more closer to how humans come to evolve as who we are, than the modern inventions of paper or the modern inventions of style of storytelling, such as digital media. So I think for me, yeah, that is my understanding of why cloth became one of the most important ways that we tell stories. And it's also like you can, you know, especially within Chin community, within my indigenous community, we have over 53 tribes. Or some people say sub-tribes. Some people, my father used groups or subgroups. There are 53 groups, and all 53 of our groups wear differently, different patterns, different colors, different styles. And you can tell by someone how someone is wearing something that they belong to this group. So it's almost like even without figures or any like explicit storytelling, there's a visual storytelling that's happening that's connecting a person to where they're coming from. So I think that's my attempt to answer the question of why cloth is used as storytelling. And coming back to my relationship to textile and the work that I do now. Yeah, growing up, so my parents like were collecting a lot of textile, and in our small house, like I would say 60% of the house is filled with textile. And growing up, I really had like a sort of like maybe an envy or like something like a disdain towards the cloth because they were taking so much space, and we didn't have space to play or to, sometimes sleep even. Like we would just find places to live near the textiles, but the textile were like the main like characters in the house, and so I didn't have a very healthy relationship with textiles growing up. But I think I don't know I can't pinpoint like the exact date or time or period, but I would say after the military coup in 2021, I became really interested in. I started to notice how the military dictators would try to erase the past,
Mm.
and in erasing the past, like the easiest way is the print, right? Like, the printing you can just erase very easily, but the hard part to erase is the cloths or the textile. Like maybe the military would be ruling for 10 years, but the way we dress may still be the same. Like maybe the newspapers that we read are different, the books that we read are different, but the clothing, the textile, like it's very hard for the central government to sort of control this medium, this material culture that exists. So I became really interested in textile, and also because my mother dyes natural indigo dye. I also experimenting with natural dye in a lot of my artworks. Mainly like tomorrow, I'm also screening one of my short films, and it's responding to how people are feeling under the coup in Myanmar. And in it, I also use indigo as there's like a popular saying of feeling blue, and maybe I'm spoiling myself, but as a performance piece, I dyed my whole body in indigo with the cloths that I'm wearing, with white cloths, and slowly you get to see the indigo dye coming into the cloth, but also into like fingernails, to like hair, like nose, like the whole body gets a little bit bluer. And yeah, since then, like and that was in 2021. I started experimenting with, and now like more and more, because the way that technology advances, like I think we get a lot from technology, but we don't notice what it takes away from us. I think there's a saying like no pain, no gain, but I think it's also the opposite is also true. When you gain, there's some pain as well, and maybe some pain we don't notice immediate. Some things that we lose culturally we don't notice. So more and more I became interested in what we're losing and not just what we're gaining from technology. And I was searching for a lot of mediums to work with to sort of uncover what we're losing. And I think textile, because also my parents have such a big collection, like such a good safeguarding a lot of heritage. I started going through all of it and became really interested in it. And more, yeah. I hope, not just hope, like I'm aiming to work with more textile. And yeah, also like film editing, I was actually like getting money from video editing work for like the past 3 years. And when I'm editing films, like you sit at a computer and you like see all this like little blocks of footage. And after working for like 2 years, I start to see them as like threads, like little like, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm weaving on the computer. And yeah, some other scholars like later on, because I was like, oh, this is such a like novel idea. Like, am I the first one to think about it? But I Google and no, there were like many scholars who are saying like maybe weaving is the first way that we think about programming, because programming we're using with 1010, like, and thread we're using also like very tiny, the minuscule part like component of to turn into a cloth. Yeah. So editing for me is also weaving now. Yeah. So that's like my connection
Nice.
to textile.
Thank you.
Something about the flower cloth. The flower cloth specifically from the Hmong, they didn't do much embroidery like that in a story cloth at all until they were literal refugees in Thailand, and they started creating them as a way of having something to sell. And embroidery is something you will see a lot. Like there's a booklet inside Stitching Freedom, which is all different things where embroidery is used while traveling or leaving even hidden remarks for others. For women, there's a way like you can easily carry it. You can always find a piece of cloth to work on. While like making batik is you need much more equipment. It's much more you need to grow the indigo, all these things. So yeah, they were start making these cloths to tell their stories and sell this. And when they returned actually to Laos, they kept making them. So they became over time also more happy. So you can buy ones that don't have any of the soldiers on them, and it's just telling the different stories of how they farm or those kind of things. But they keep the same format as they made in the refugee camps in the 1970s. So it's quite interesting that they kind of made a whole new textile to tell their story while there. So and the thread and the needle is something easier to tell your story with than a lot of other things apparently. Yeah.
You want to down to the experience using cloth as storytelling?
What do you mean?
Anything to add on to his question?
That was like
Yeah.
I mean this kind of
Yes.
thing is like even in also in internment camps. So we have in the Netherlands a lot of collections from people who were in internment camps in the Dutch East Indies when the Japanese invaded there, and they would just take whatever thread they could pull from their clothes and make embroideries with this, depicting the life they had when they were there. So it's a very strong way of telling stories.
So like just a little bit of our topic, like why my personal practice as a curator, why I choose textiles, because one is easier to keep, practicality, and also the textile itself, as you have heard, is just like probably the tip of the iceberg of